I think that we have a social script of what holiday season is supposed to look like.
Also, if you have some type of tragedy or trauma in your life, it seems to amplify itself during those times, during the winter, during the holiday season.
Is to be creative around how we can come together as community and still keep safe, and utilizing this digital world, these virtual platforms to be able to come together in community because we're not out of the woods as it relates to COVID. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is the National Harm Reduction Coalition's panel discussion on coping through the winter months. During this time of year, we noticed that a lot of folks struggle sometimes with dealing with their families. They may have difficulties with depression, whether it's seasonal or whether it is some other diagnosable situation. And so we wanted to offer some discussion around the holiday season and how to uplift our overall health and well-being. For today's panel, I'm Dr. Orisha Bowers, and I will serve as the moderator of the conversation. I'm the executive director at National Harm Reduction Coalition, and I will ask our esteemed panelists to introduce themselves. How about we start off with Mardrey, Wade, Kiles.
Yes. Thank you all for inviting me to participate first. And I just like to say I am a licensed professional counselor in Tennessee. I have a passion for public health, community, being involved in the community and seeing where the deficits are there. I am employed at a community health center as a director over the access team that to invite people to come into our network and get the help that they need. And I also am a director of my own organization, which is called the Head Shop. I do virtual therapy and some in-person therapy and some in-person groups. However, I am in the process. It's never too late to pursue your dream. So I'm in the process right now of acquiring my doctoral degree in behavioral health in clinical leadership. So I've been doing this for about 12 years, the mental health side, and in public health for about 19, as I was reminded yesterday. So it's been about 19 years for public health services. So thank you all again for inviting me. I'm excited.
Thank you so much, Mardrey, and we'll turn it over to the Parker Bryant.
Hello all. Thank you so much for this invitation. Very short and sweet. I'm Parker Bryant. One day I started to heal out loud because there was no community for me to heal within. And so I became accountable to strangers. I am still in my journey of no longer overusing alcohol. And so I come from a very personal and passionate place. I'm currently in upstate New York pursuing my PhD in literacy education. I'm a veteran educator, but more so I'm a lover of people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your hearts. Such beautiful, beautiful testaments to your commitment and dedication to the community and to the wellness and health of community members. So I'll start our first question off to direct it towards you, Parker. For many people, winter and the holiday season can really exacerbate barriers they may be facing for support and overall health and well-being. Can you talk about why that is or why you think that is and share some examples of what that might look like for someone who uses substances?
Sure, I'll do my best at this. I think that we have a social script of what holiday season is supposed to look like. And in those social scripts, people, even though there is this external performance of giving to all, people usually go within. They go within their families, and they go within in their pockets. They start to determine where they want to see their money go. Monies just start flowing differently, and donations take on different shapes. And so I think that if we are blind to how drug usage marginalizes certain people, certain bodies, we don't see that when we start to go within our own families and we start to only donate to certain bodies, children and homeless and all of these things, people who are in need of ongoing support, they start to see people turn away from them. They can't, because they're not fitting the social script of who is worthy of being donated to during this season, who is worthy of receiving an extra hand, an extra coat, an extra bed, any of those things. And so I feel that us as a community and us as a society must start to think wider and broader about what does giving back to the community and what populations continuously deserve our care. So that's what I feel like happens. And I think sometimes it happens unconsciously, but now that we are conscious and aware that all of us, every last one of us needs love, that we can extend our family viewpoint during this time.
Thank you so much for that. Mardrey, I want to give you an opportunity if you want to weigh in on that question.
I would like to. So I think that the winter in the holiday time, first of all, it gets dark so early and it changes our mood. It really affects our mood. And then also, if you have some type of tragedy or trauma in your life, it seems to amplify itself during those times, during the winter, during the holiday season, because we think the holiday seasons are always about joy and happiness. So it paints this picture in our minds. And as Dr. Parker said, you have this vision of what it looks like. And so it can be really burdensome on someone that, on family members and someone that's addicted. I think that we expect for people to act a certain way, be a certain way, be around certain family members. But I say, choose people that are safe for you, choose areas that are safe for you. I know this, if you feel guilt and shame, that means that you're not completely numb. So, feel it, process that. And long before the winter comes, long before the holidays come, find you a therapist or support group. Even if you're not ready to commit to total sobriety, but preparing yourself for those times that are going to come along, the winter months and that holiday month. Yes.
Thank you both. The piece that I will add from my perspective is the impact of COVID and how COVID has really, really amplified isolation for folks who may already be isolated and in need of support, but unable to access it because of the COVID protocols or because of the fear around getting one of the variants of COVID or not being allowed to participate in certain things because of the vaccination requirements and things like that. And just for us as a whole to be mindful that people are already kind of locked out in places where they may normally be accessing support or community due to, health requirements. And so, figuring out ways to be creative around how we can come together as community and still keep safe, and utilizing this digital world, these virtual platforms to be able to come together in community because we're not out of the woods as it relates to COVID. The next question is about how the holidays can the holidays can be a time of being around loved ones in supportive environments, though for many, including folks who use drugs, gatherings for the holidays can become stressful and put pressure on folks who may be in spaces where they're not treated respectfully. How can folks, including people who use drugs, navigate this? And Mardrey, you started talking about this, but can you expound on that, some strategies that folks can use when they may be encountering those troublesome, problematic spaces?
Yeah. So I say for the person that uses drugs and for the family member, don't walk around on eggshells. First of all, you should be in a place where you're safe and comfortable so that you don't have to walk around on eggshells. Everybody in the family is not your fit. So to know what boundaries you hold and what people, as I said before, are safe for you. Don't withdraw. It's easy to want to isolate yourself because you don't know how other people are going to take you when you walk in that room. But don't isolate yourself. That's another reason to be in a safe place. And also be around someone that you feel has shown you some compassion and that you've been vulnerable with before. And that's for the family member as well as the person that uses the drugs. And talk about a plan. You have a plan to keep yourself safe. Talk about what your concerns are with that person that you've been vulnerable with. Because it's always, sometimes when we're outside looking in, we forget about who those really supportive people were in our lives and who they are. So talk about what concerns you. Don't skirt around your feelings and your thoughts. Go ahead, let them out beforehand. And also set boundaries. Just set boundaries for yourself. There's nothing wrong with being your best cheerleader. Set boundaries. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I liken it to the safety planning that we talk about with survivors of domestic violence. We often say to them, you have to have a safety plan. And so what you're saying sounds like something similar for folks who may be in situations like know where all the exits are, know who your people are that can advocate for and with you, but also have a plan for escape. Like if you need to leave early, it's okay to cut the night short. It's okay to have that person you can call. I often have somebody that I can text and say, give me a call because I need an out. You know what? So-and-so just called me. Let me go take this call. And that way I can get a conversation going on, so that I can ease out of the situation. Parker, I want to give you an opportunity to chime in on this because I think as much as we can share as far as strategies with people, we can really, be helpful to folks.
I think everything has been said, especially when it comes down to the strategy and safety plan. Ask that question, who all gonna be there? Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, who coming over this year? And because certain people, just the sight of certain people can be a trigger. But in that instance as well, don't let that trigger keep you from seeing the people that you love. Because holding, smelling grandma that loves you unconditionally can take you through that winter, these dark seasons. So don't be afraid to ask that question. And something that I wrote down was, during this time that you got to interact with family, you are the best person to know your precision when it comes. Know how much, when, where. And then I've learned too is that even though sometimes our usage could be the solution, but if we reorient it to be the reward, it could probably hit different, as in saying, all right, I'm going now. I'm going to hug grandma neck. I'm going to tell her I love her. I'm going to dap up my cousins. I ain't fooling with them fools over there because I'm going to go off and then I'm going to leave. And then once you get done, you take that deep breath and you reward yourself responsibly in a safe place, in clean manners, and let that be a victory for you. This small steps are victory laps. So that would be something that I would say, that exit plan, that safety plan, your measurements, you get in there and do what you got to do, and then you get out.
Thank you all so much for that. To your point, Parker, at NHRC, we often say, we believe that each person is an expert in their own lives and each person knows their situation best. So you're right on par with what your response was. Do you have any other general tips or advice for folks who may be using drugs or alcohol during this time period? And what are some ways to, kind of decrease anxiety, or some resources and safe spaces that they could use that you may know about, or spaces that you're creating that folks can tap into to help during this time period? And either of you can answer.
Yeah, for sure. I tried to frame my thinking around the questions that were given to us. And as in what Mardrey said, get you a friend, get you a buddy. That's accountability buddy, not just, that buddy, get you an accountability buddy to navigate public spaces. One that loves you unconditionally, one that can read you, because sometimes when usage goes and triggers, like during certain months, you may be able to take a certain amount. But let's say when you are triggered, heightened, the same dosage ain't going to chemically respond the same way. So understanding somebody who can read when, I just had my regular, but your eyes start looking crazy, you start talking funny, you have an accountability buddy who cares, that cannot take you over, but bring you back. Navigate public spaces with that person. If you are going with family, get you some good jazzy snapbacks. If they talking funny, you better go ahead and cut auntie neck off. Well, yeah, but what about you and old boy? Get you some snapbacks. More so it is to control the narrative around you. That's the main thing. Go in with the story that you want to tell. And if anybody else want to tell another story about you, we're not talking about that. This is what we're talking about. And when you can no longer control the narrative that is happening around you, you and your accountability buddy, it's time to part. Because in all aspects, you are trying to reduce the harm that is happening to you. So even if that is not a tie to your usage, that is a tie to the people that you are around. So you reduce the harm with those people. And even though you may be blood related, it does not mean that they will not harm you. So that's that. That's what I have. That's what I do now. And my intentions are very different when I'm in public spaces with usage than when I'm in private spaces with usage. But I have built an accountability community around me that knows and reads me well and allows me to explore my wanders. But they are not afraid to say, that's it. Yeah. So get you some good snapbacks. Tell auntie about herself or whoever got shit to talk.
Thank you, Parker. Mardrey.
Can you repeat that again? what you asked. I'm sorry, because I was all into that.
My bad. Yes, I was getting into the answer and I got discombobulated. The question was, do you have any general tips or advice for folks who use drugs or alcohol or other substances during this time of year? And what are ways that they can, reduce anxiety or create safe spaces that they can use? Or if you are creating a safe space, how are you doing it? Just some practices, some hacks that you can share with folks.
Okay, so all of us have people in our lives that are drug users, and so I do try to make my family members or my friends that have those things going on. I at my house, if I have a cousin that's coming that I know is an alcoholic, I'm not going to serve liquor. I'm just not. They may choose to drink before they get there. I'm not going to beat them up because they come in that way. I know this person. But also for the family, be a good listener. Instead of attacking, listen to that person. A lot of times, those loved ones are telling you what happened, but you're not listening. So be open to listen and not so accusative, not so ready to beat them up because of their addiction. And as well as, I think because that'll help them in turn not be so defensive, not be so ready to defend themselves and be offended by, the way what the atmosphere is in the room, because at least you're that support person. They can look at you and know the story because you listened and you validated what there is, what was going on, what happened to them. So yeah, I think as family members, we should consider our family members are not just, it's not just about their usage. It's about something happened. And you don't want to continue to be that trigger for them. You want to know who they are and what happened. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I will say for me during this time, and really any time, it's not even for me at any particular time of year or any particular space, any space that I'm in, I try to let folks know that I'm a safe person, that they can talk to me in the language that makes sense for them and in the terms that make sense for them at that moment in time, and that it's safe and that, they don't have to put on any kind of show or be any specific type of way or not do certain things because they're around me. I try my best to make spaces wherever I am safe for people who may be experiencing something. And I'm very, very public about that. You're not people know you're not going to do certain things around Dr. O because she's going to stop you. I'm going to call you in to accountability. If you are doing something or saying something that is harmful or if I perceive that it is causing harm to another person. And I try to be an ally in that way, no matter what time of year it is. I think that people can adopt, like you said, certain boundaries. Let your home be a place where people are not policed. Let your home be, if you're having events and things at your home, let your home be the place where it's okay for people to say, this is the line, go back to that side, and so I try to do things like that. I try to make every space a brave space. I won't say safe because, I think personally, Black people are really comfortable being unsafe, and no space is actually safe for us. But that's another topic. We're not talking about that for today. Well, that's the next panel. But then also, I think just stepping back to something that you said, Mardrey, is really having a conversation with the individuals that are going to be present. Listen, this is what this is. This is who's going to be here. And if you feel uncomfortable, you're welcome. But if you can't handle it, I understand. Like giving people an out who may be the problematic person. Give them an out too. They may not be at the place where they can be in certain spaces. And like you were saying, Parker, people have scripts and they think they have to attend. Sometimes it may not necessarily be about the person who is using substances. It might be the problematic person that you have to give an out or that you have to have the conversation with. Because you need to set the ground rules or you need to set the expectation and make it all right for them not to attend or not to be present, because I can tell you at some of my family events, I have family members who are, they're deep into religion and they, I don't believe in this or that. And it's like, I understand and I want to honor your values. And so it is totally okay. And I am not offended that you can't accept my invite, but right. My home is a place that's open to all. So right. I understand if you can't come. So just to give an example of a way to kind of look at it from the reverse, that sometimes you might have to give that person and give their respects where they weren't able to attend, and it's okay. No love lost. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Right. I want to give the opportunity for folks to share anything else that you would like to share. I really love these ideas around relational accountability with an accountability partner and having your safe people, your person that knows you. I love those pieces that you've shared, but I want to also give an opportunity for you all to share any other thoughts that you may have about this or any other takeaways that you want to give to people who may be listening.
Yeah. Again, thank you for this conversation. I wish that I knew about harm reduction. I think I told you this when we talked maybe last year, is that I wish I would have known, that was at the beginning of this year. Time ain't about nothing. But I wish I would have known that I could still be loved while being a user, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that the goal was to not harm myself, not to make everybody else proud of me for being or stopping, using, drinking. But something that really helped me in relationship to accountability partners is that you're your first line of accountability. And what I do know is that there are voices that speak to us. And sometimes we use to silence the voices. I would suggest, having a relationship with the voices instead of trying to get rid of them, and learn how to have a conversation with them. I say the word tame very loosely, but tame it and distinguish the voices. And when they get louder, be able to separate who's speaking to me. Is this me? Is this what my grandma told me? Is this what the officer who just did something? Who is speaking to me? And that helped me a lot, because there are scripts that are running inside of us that are using our own voice. So we think it is us. And because we're like, wait a minute, that disconnect, that discord, then we use in order to kind of bring ourselves back together again. So that would be something that I would suggest, is getting used to those voices and being in conversation with those voices, learning where that voice comes from and distinguishing your voice from the voices that talk to you. And for family members and friends and accountability partners, you know, the more you evolve through your usage, your circle has to change. It has to. Like, you can still be friends with such and such, but if y'all usage are no longer balancing, you have to change your circle. You have to, because each level in your usage will then bring certain energies around you. And if you're trying to go in one direction and your circle is in the other direction, that discord is going to be there, you know? And for family members, I wonder how uncomfortable we can get in learning how to love. We think love's supposed to be something very comfortable and something that if you give to me, I got to give back to you. But sometimes love ain't like that. And if these your people, can you sit with them and still love them? You know, and that's something that I'm learning through my little niece, who is all Black girl all day, will snap her neck. And you're like, wait a minute, I just bought you $500 worth of clothes. What's going on with this? You know, before I was love, I would pop real quick. But now I'm learning to sit with how she responds to the world. And that is doing something different for me. Even in my discomfort, I can hear her clearly because I am out of myself and how I want her to behave. So those are my tips. And thank you again.
Ooh, I just need to just take me a breath right there. Thank you for sharing that, Mardrey.
So as you were saying that, I thought about me as a sober person, my own guilt in this, you know, so I'm going to be defensive. Because I have not listened to my family member that that's in distress. I call it in distress because I don't think that people wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to drink alcohol. I'm going to shoot this drug up in me. I just want to spend the rest of my life high. I think that they're numbing things because it hurts to feel. It's a lot of pain, a lot of chaos that most likely they've been through. So then in turn, a lot of times our family members feel guilty of something I must not have done, or maybe this may have happened, or I know that this happened and I wasn't there. I didn't rescue that person. So, or I didn't validate when they said to me that this happened or this bothered them. And the listening to them again, listening, processing, because you were saying about the voices, processing it. You know, not just dismissing, yes, this is my grandmother's, but why does this bother me so much? You know, what is that about? What happened? How does this make me feel about myself? You know, and I think that goes both ways, the family and the user. So yeah, just a lot of processing and allowing and being so gracious and kind of taking the down one down and allowing that person to tell you what happened, how they feel. We dismiss the user and we act like they are that drug or that substance, you know, that substance that they're using. And we forget they are human beings, heart beating every day. They thinking, you know, they're thinking, it may be distorted at times, but it's all out of pain. I believe it's all out of pain. I try to get my family members of the people in my family that are users. I try to get the other family members. I said, hold on, wait a minute. We're not going to bash them. Now, you know, and I'm just frank, you know that you witnessed, you saw this and this and this happen to that person while they were growing up. Come on. Let's talk about it. So you can start understanding, because even if they spend their whole lives using and they never but at least they had a place that was safe. But a lot of times, if you open up that door and you get an understanding, sooner or later they coming through that door. They coming through. If you put that barrier up, yes, we have to have boundaries as family members, but that other barrier, I don't want to hear this. I don't have time for this because of my guilt, my shame. You know, you're not going to bring me to me. I don't want to see that. Then yeah, you're going to have a problem. It's going to be a problem. Nobody gets healed in that atmosphere. Nobody's going to get healed. No one is.
You know, it's amazing that something you said, what came up for me as I was listening to you all's takeaways is really thinking about the context of the human experience, right? So you both spoke about humanizing or providing that person the opportunity to live with dignity, right? And not stripping them of their humanity. But they're a real person, you know, even though this is my cousin or my niece or my whomever, they're a whole person. And so how do I experience them in that way and give them permission to be a whole person? And the other thing that came up for me when you were speaking about the voices, so many people have experienced trauma where they, you know, were being cared for by a sick caregiver, you know, whether that person was absent or whatever the case may have been, they weren't there mentally there, they weren't present physically, they didn't protect the individual. And so their inner child, so, you know, we call it inner child, their inner child comes forward in those traumatic moments. And we no longer have the adult in front of us. We have that child that never got what they needed. And so I would say, you know, knowing the person's story and allowing them to be human puts things into context. And having context is kindness, right? Because now I can be one human being to another human being, regardless of our relational pieces. I can empathize with cousin, whomever, that they just want a meal, you know, they just want a meal for Thanksgiving or Christmas. They didn't come to rehash, you know, at the holiday event, all of the mistakes they made in life. They just want to eat with everybody and break bread. And it allows us a little bit more space. I call it the grace quotient. It allows us the opportunity to make adjustments. You know, what are we doing right now? We just having a meal. We got all the rest of our life to talk about what you borrowed and didn't pay back or whatever happened. We can do that. But just in this moment, can we pause the script? Can we put a pause on the tape? And let's just sit down and let's just have this moment to sit together, to be together. And then we figure out the other parts. I just love, you know, that sort of that foundation that y'all laid in humanity, because I think as harm reductionists, that's our job, is to restore, you know, we use all this language, heal the harms, reduce harm, but really it's about restoring people's humanity. Let's just be human. Let's just have this moment in time, and then we can do all the other stuff. But I think we prioritize, like you said, we prioritize talking about the behaviors, about the drugs, about the alcohol or whatever it is. And those are all basically what I see is like, if we're a tree, those are leaves that are dangling in the wind. But the root of the tree is that moment. Let's just be together now and love on each other now. And then we can get with the leaves blowing and rustling some other time.
You know, I wanted to say that I learned how to love by seeing my family love the users in my family. Like, you could have just said you was coming over to clean up and you done took everything out the house. You know, you done took things. But I just never seen my family close the door and lock it. When they came back to knock on the door, now we may have put some things away, but you coming back in this house because you my family and I love you and I know you. I know you outside, beyond, through, around your usage. And I know love because of that. We all have some degree of usage in our lives, and we try to put them in hierarchies of, oh, well, you do this, I do this. Well, it ain't. Mm-mm. How can we just love each other above and beyond, heart to heart? I know love because of that, because they never locked the door on the users in my family.
Yes. And honestly, I think that's what our sense of community is born out of. I think that's what, for me, as a Black Southern woman doing harm reduction in my community, it is that. It is never locking that door, always having a pathway back. No matter the prodigal son story, no matter how far off the path you go, there's always you can always come back. And I think the work is the boundaries, the keeping each other safe, but having, this is where the line is, come on in. Like you said, let me put this up, but come on in, come on back, and never throwing people away. And I think that for me is how we can demonstrate harm reduction in real time, during this holiday season is, do all the things you need to do to protect your belongings, to keep yourself safe, to keep your home safe, to, make people feel welcome, etc. But don't lock people out. This has really been a powerful, powerful conversation. And I want to honor our time commitments. So I want to give a moment to, if there are any last thoughts, lingering thoughts that you all would like to share.
Yeah, so, there's the family, thinking about the family. Sometimes there's a lot of hurt there. We talked about that. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain. And sometimes it does come from things, behaviors that the user may have did, things the user may have taken a family through, because their family is looking at their reputation. They're looking at their pride and all of that. But however, also, their hurt and their pain. I think that if they acknowledge how they feel, what the hurt was, not bashing the user, but this conversation, and really actually dealing with your hurt and your pain. You deal with that, because really, I think that all those things says to us, I'm not safe. I wasn't safe. I was vulnerable, and they did this to me, and they did that to me. And actually, knowing you do have some power. You have some power. That happened. It doesn't have to happen again. And I was thinking about things that we can do when we're not ready. When some families are not ready to let those family members into their circle, the users, they can pay for, during the winter months, go to a shelter, pay for that family member a shelter or a boarding room for those winter months, and let them know, this is where you can go when it's cold, when you want to lay down. I bought you this. I bought you some warm clothes, some socks, some hats and gloves, though when you're not safe with that family member, but all because they remember this. So it's a proven fact that when people go into recovery and they have supportive loved ones, their success is greater and their relapse is less. They have less relapses when they have supportive family members. But the the paying for the shelter during the winter months, or making sure that they have a warm place to lay when they need to rest from out of their addiction. That's for the family that is not ready yet, because some aren't, they're just not ready yet. But that is something that you can do to extend that. I know that you're still human and I still love you, but I have some hurt.
That's excellent suggestions. And I agree with you. I do think that it's important, to be able to express our love, right? Mm-hmm. In a way that feels safe. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make sure that I'm articulating that we're not just talking about, a one-sided story. We're talking about, in both situations, because meeting people where they are isn't just extended to people who use drugs, right? We have to still meet, if we're going to live out the harm reduction principles, then we have to live them out with people in general, regardless of their status, drug use status or drug history. And so I love that you all are thinking about this and sharing opportunities, because I consider them to be opportunities, right? Opportunities for us to demonstrate love to our family members. Because I think another thing that is super important to note is that during this time period, when people don't see love demonstrated in these kinds of ways, they may feel like they are left behind or that they're not cared for. And so this is also a way for us to help keep people safe, to balance those voices or their inner talk that they may be hearing, that nobody cares, nobody loves you, etc. And when we can demonstrate to folks, I'm not ready to be in community with you. However, I do care about your health and well-being. And here's how I can show that, right? I can bring you up, I can get you a room, I can bring you a plate to the room. I can get you a jacket, a blanket, a hat, whatever it is that we can do that is safe for us to do, to show our loved ones that we haven't forgotten them, even though we're not quite at the place where we're able to be in community. And I think that's a really important dynamic to articulate here, because we do spend a lot of time thinking about how to make our homes safe. But when we're not ready yet, we still have to meet folks where they are, right? And so this gives us sort of an on-ramp that we can use to help people get in where they fit in, so to speak. I'm not ready for that part, but this is what's safe for me at this point. I think it's important to balance the conversation in that way. So I appreciate those suggestions, Mardrey, because that's a really important thing that I think doesn't always get expressed. With that being said, I'm going to call our meeting to a close and thank everyone who was able to be here to listen in. If you have any questions, feel free to send your questions, and any of us will respond to questions. Again, thank you so much for your time and your expertise in sharing your experiences with us and our audience. We are very, 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 very appreciative of that. We know that it is a big step for folks to share in this way, and also to offer support to folks who may be looking for support. So thank you all so much, so very much for this time together.
Thank you, Dr. O. Thank you for all the work that you're doing with harm reduction, and you're teaching all of us how to love better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. O. I love this.